Hello and welcome to the Vlogging Pod. Tonight we are joined by Vasu Tolia, and I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right.
Vasu Tolia.
Totally okay. Pronunciation has never been my friend.
That's okay. Yeah.
So, how are you this evening?
I'm very well. Thank you, Eddie. I'm
Well,
so
thank you.
happy to be on your podcast.
Oh, well, I'm delighted to have you with us. So let's just dive right in.
Okay.
And because I'm so excited to find out that after you retired from pediatrics, you ventured into an artistic journey. So, what inspired you to take such a leap?
Well, I was a over full time person, like working 60 hours a week because I was in academia and doing full time mentoring, research, teaching, seeing patients, everything. So I knew that when I stepped away from it, I would need something to keep me occupied.
Hmm.
And as I was thinking about different options, I did try other forms of art like music and dancing, and but I settled on visual arts because I felt as I was trying and experimenting with it that I could feel that art and it could become a passion that I could fulfill it with another purpose and carry
Hmm.
on my healing through medicine into healing by art. So that's why I felt when I took the leap, I was a novice and
Hmm.
I didn't know ABCs about painting and drawing. But as I started to do more and more, things started falling in place, and I felt like I had found a voice again for healing.
Hmm. That's inspiring.
Yeah.
So, can you relate to us your vision of transforming healthcare spaces through art?
Sure. Um, while the effects of art on brain are becoming better known as every day passes and neuroarts is coming into mainstream of research even. Um,
Hmm.
and based on that, some of the hospitals do have calming, soothing art to fill their spaces like waiting rooms and lounges, things like that, because usually people visiting the hospital are either the relatives of patients or friends or waiting in rooms, and they would really need a break from the stress of having a dear one ill.
Hmm.
So I feel that filling those sterile spaces with art that can heal and smooth and at times even inspire to do something more is the kind of purpose that I'm trying to forward as I'm giving talks on about art heals and putting, even when I on my website when I sell paintings, I try to donate it to charities related to healing and women's empowerment and protecting the planet
Hmm.
because those are some of the missions I have in life um, to try and help go forward.
Mm. Well, that is admirable, and I really love the healing of the earth part too. I think we all need to consciously more bring that more to a more of awareness in our especially in our current environments. Um, s
Yes, and
so what
if I may
Go
add
ahead.
about the environmental advocacy, I do make environmental themed artworks, and I would encourage other artists and people to look at these platforms to promote sustainability and environmental awareness because the impact of eco-conscious creativity in today's world is very important and it will be long
Yes.
lasting. Yes,
Yes, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. So,
yes.
when when you're looking at your art, what do you see the science behind it for the properties for healing?
There is a science of chromotherapy and the science of actual healing because chromotherapy is a science of colors and some colors are more soothing than others, like blues and greens, and even some of the yellows mixed with greens are more soothing to mind. They are kind of cool colors. And
Mhm.
some of the brighter colors like red and orange are more exciting. Uh, but that some of the pastel tones like pinks and lilacs and turquoise and all those are very soothing also. So as I'm creating artworks, I try to incorporate these concepts in them, knowing also that visualizing art and using more than one sense at a time. We have five senses: the touch,
Mhm.
smell, sight, hearing. So when you're making art, whether it is music or dance or sculpturing, even knitting, cooking, anything,
Right.
that is one's passion. When you're doing it, you're engaging two or three senses at least, and those kinds of engagements create release of dopamine from the brain,
Mm.
and that
Yes.
decreases the stress because it does take down the level of cortisol also. So
Mhm.
it's not just the making of art. Even when we view the art, these senses can get engaged, because if you see, like, say for example, paintings with textures on it, you feel like touching it and feeling it, and besides just engaging with your eyes, you want to involve your sense of touch, and those kinds of things are, they excuse me.
Oh, no, bless you.
Thank you. They release and engage these centers, what are called reward centers in the brain, in
Mhm.
amygdala and all, and these are these are very good for calming the mind and soothing the mind and helping you improve the focus.
Mm. That's a good point. Now, I see some of your art has, poems, placed within it. Are these
Yes,
your poems or
yes, they are my poems, and some of them I have actually written and made them into pieces of art.
Mm.
But some of them are what are called erasure poems. So, like, I pick up a page from anywhere, like a newspaper or a book or something, and I will erase out most of the words, but just select a few and create even a sentence, that makes more sense to me and an impact. But
Right.
I fill up the page in such a way that the whole thing becomes a piece of art.
I can relate to that. I've written a few books in my in my years here.
Have you?
Um, I
Yeah, that's great.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. To me, and I have said this for years, I think writing is a type of art form. I'm not everyone's cup of tea. I'm very lucid on my writing. So I drift. I'm not I'm not into any kind of normal form. So I can really relate on you dipping into the art form. I see art as an expression, a release, a longing for things. And you can see just from your art itself that you do have a longing to be able to touch and heal those around you.
Yes, and I can fully understand that because I write also. Um,
Mhm.
in my academic life, I wrote over 150 papers and all. But
Oh,
now
wow.
I journal, and book journaling can also be a
Mhm.
form of art where you let down your thoughts and combine it with pictures, or you can just writing. Yes, writing in literary arts is a huge form of art and very impactful.
Right. Now, you haven't just done art. You've not just done art within selling capacities. You do them work with some charities as well. How do you filter that out to where you know which charity you want to work with? How does that work out for you when you go ahead to do that?
Um, I have a friend who is engaged in charity, and through him, I have found several sources, and I have sort of vetted them out to make sure they are legitimate, places. A couple of them are local, like Ted Lindsay Foundation, who help kids with autism, is a local foundation, and I see their effects and what they are doing. And that kind of effort is dear to me because I have taken care of many patients with autism.
Mhm.
Then I, women's empowerment is one of my big missions. So the lifting up the vulnerable, which is a site that works in southern Sudan to lift up the women and children who are there and
Yes.
have been really going through terrible times. So that's another charity that I'm integrated with. And the third one I am with is called No Shame on You, which is to increase the awareness of mental illness. And
Mhm.
there is so much of this because of stress or whatever situation that one must try and help these missions. I'm open to helping others also, but I just yet haven't found any specific charity beyond these that gels with me. uh, but I'm very happy to look at others. I'm constantly searching who else I can help, whether it fits in with my missions.
Right. I understand that. So, now when you look at your art, would you consider that abstract? What kind of art form do you think you portray within your paintings?
I portray, I started with representational, but during COVID times, I started to move away from representational more to abstract. And
Mhm.
I responded to a call by Washington Post on COVID art. And I was thrilled when it got into the top 20 in the nation, that piece of
Wow.
artwork. And then the next year, CDC solicited that artwork for putting on the cover of the journal on emerging infectious diseases. It was all about COVID 19. So that's where I felt my medicine and art came together. And I'm doing more abstract and semi abstract works.
Mhm.
And my art is not just for decoration, it's a tool for healing, self expression, and empowerment. And I would love for it to transform spaces and lives, because when somebody hangs it and they choose a charity, then they also feel that they fulfilled some purpose in the world, not just decorated their space.
Mhm.
So this is how I transitioned from being a physician to an artist, but still carry the mission of healing and empowering people in this new chapter of my life.
Well, I've been looking at your website where your art is listed, and it is very powerful. You have some very powerful pieces.
Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. I'm more traditional, but I do love the abstract context. You can really tell some of the emotions. I'm falling in love with the weaving light that you have
Oh,
illustrated on your site,
okay.
and I love the Rhode Island sunset. Now,
Yeah.
do you have a studio at your home that you do this, or do you go on location? How do you carry out when you're on a project such as your art?
No, I have a studio in my home, and I'm very thankful for having this facility because it makes me more productive, to be honest with you. Because I
Mm.
live in Michigan, and in winters, if I had to get out on a day with minus 10 degrees temperature and bundle up and go to another place, it would be daunting, to want to
Well,
get
we're
out.
actually
Yes.
neighbors. We're actually neighbors. I'm in Ohio, so
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
and I feel you because I'm in my she shed, and this is where I come out and work. So I have a little studio or a sound booth, I guess you would say, and in consideration to the different type of studios you and I would have.
Yeah.
Um, I've got my little office out here. It has a kitchen, has a little living room, it has my work area over on the other side, and then I have this like closet like space that's my studio.
Yeah,
I know.
we have to make do with what we have, right?
Well, we do. Well, I'm not hoofing it by any means. My husband built this for me, so I have everything but a toilet. I have running water and all that, so I'm not complaining one bit. So
Yeah,
I can
yeah.
understand that. Now, so when we talk about your art, you've not just worked with charities or done it within healthcare situations. You were also on the CDC journal cover, if I'm correct.
Yes, yes. And that was the COVID art I was mentioning.
Oh, okay.
It was on the cover of Emerging Infectious Diseases, and that was published in December 2022.
Nice.
And then I have also been in a few other, publications like coffee book tables and all, but and I'm currently working on a new show that's going to be on for 3 months from April to June at a
Mm.
local gallery. And the theme of
No.
this, yes, and the theme of this particular show is between the earth and the sky. So it's kind of open to anything. Everything that we know is between the earth and the sky. But
Hmm.
I'm really leaning more to nature because I find nature to be the biggest healer and inspirator. So
Yes.
I'm doing more and more flowers, like in abstracted form, but you can make them out as flowers. But they are going to be so they are kind of very healing things, and very pleasant to look at, and still with
I yeah.
different forms. Yeah,
I can really relate to that. I do think there is a lot of healing in nature. If you get down to the bare basics, everything comes from that. So, from someone who maybe spent day in my a few I think we're going on 2 years. My father, got ill, and then my sister this last year. So I spent quite, the last few years in hospitals, and then I had my own little thing, but we just now got figured out. But I can understand because when I would come home, you are so drained and being able to immerse yourself into nature. So I could really consider that a touch of peace that you'd be bringing into some situations to bring nature into the canvas in such a way.
yes.
I can.
And it doesn't have to be a landscape, just like what you said. You like the Rhode Island sunset.
Yes, yes.
it
It
can be
it's
it can be a more abstract form of it, but with the just arrangement of colors um, and the way you put them in on the canvas can be very impactful and soothing too.
it is. I'm looking at it right now. I really love the Rhode Island sunset. Um, because I think that's what you're saying. Like for me, maybe it is more nature. Most of the paintings I even have out here in my shed are either of plants or art forms of some sort. Now, I do have some abstract in the house, but it depends on the colors. Some things you just look at, they just really speak to you and
Yeah,
pull you in, and you just want to absorb. You know what I mean? You just really, there are sometimes I'll just sit in the room just so I can be in there, turn on a fireplace and just sit in there and drink a glass of wine to just look at the paintings.
yeah. And the beauty of abstract art is, Ellie, that every time you look at it from a different angle, different light, you see something different in it.
Yes.
So
Yes.
so that can keep it evergreen, rather than getting tired of looking at something all the time.
Oh, exactly. I agree wholeheartedly with that. So when you speak to others about maybe pivoting careers such as yourself, what advice would you give them on doing so?
I would tell them that there is possibility of second acts in life,
Hmm.
and you should be keeping your open mind, but you have to really think about what risks you're going to take and how it's going to affect your life. um, there are things like how would I advise a friend or a loved one if they wanted to switch careers? um,
Hmm.
I would help them gain a fresh perspective by removing a personal bias. But I would ask, if I was not afraid of failure, what would I choose? Would I be willing
Mm.
to leave what I'm doing at present? Or how will this decision impact the people around me? because you're not just by yourself. You will have a relationship, community, family, everybody to think about, especially if you are a major breadwinner. And
Yes.
and and when you are taking that kind of a path, what lessons have I learned from my previous career or previous path, that even if it didn't work out as planned, so even you normalize the failure as part of growth and build your resilience. And there
Mm,
are some smaller decisions, that you can take before testing the waters, before fully committing. So that kind of gives you a sense of control through incremental progress.
right. I can relate. My husband is our main income, so mine is only like sprinkles on the top of ice cream in retrospect.
Yeah.
So, whatever I bring in from what I do out here is just sprinkles. So, there is something to say about that. It is you'd have to think about where you are in your life. If you've already worked a full diligent life and then you're in your retirement, like when you just like with your when you retired from your pediatric career,
Yeah.
I'm sure that you've put stuff back to care for you financially and able to dabble into things that you didn't know if we're going to take flight or or just settle
Yes.
on the ground and appease an inner longing for art. Um, and that is scary. It is wholly scary.
Yes, and
Um,
you're very right. And besides that, you also have to think about, is this choice bringing me closer to a life of ease, peace, and fulfillment?
yes.
So, whether, need to have a balanced, joyful life. So, when you're making such transition, you have to ask yourself, this decision is exciting me or energizing me, or I'm finding it motivating? Uh, and does it help me reflect the legacy I want to leave behind?
Yes.
Because you want to start building your legacy while you're alive. It's not like you're just leaving a bunch of money. It's your values that
Mm.
are really your most important legacy. Like, how you raise your children and what you're leaving behind you, your shadows and your extensions. Those are the biggest legacies you leave, not just a chunk of money.
Oh, I understand. I get that wholeheartedly.
Mhm.
It's a balance, especially if you have children that are young and need more of you. So it's a balance. Um,
Yes.
but I think if anything brings you that much joy, some way, somehow, you're going to make time for it. Even if it's not your full time career, it might just be a hobby until it can be more than that.
Yes, and
So,
and only if you do small experiments with a particular thing and
mhm,
stay with it at least for a few weeks before deciding whether it is for you or it's not. But if you
exactly.
wholeheartedly engage with something like that, even with 15, 20 minutes, 2 or 3 times a week, you may find
Mhm,
out whether it is the niche that you want to take, or you want to try something else.
I agree. So, what can we expect next from you? Do you have a great painting that's coming that's growing life in the studio right now? What can you tell us?
Yes, I'm creating two big pieces which are 5 feet by 6 feet, and I'm not yet sure what form it's taking. But art has taught me to embrace imperfection. Like in medicine, precision was the key, but in art, the freedom and flexibility unlocks my creativity. I'm
Mhm.
feeling it's going to be more in nature, and if I make them part of these exhibitions, they may take flower forms, but I'm not sure yet as to where it's going. And like I told you about the solo show that's coming up,
Mhm.
so I'm very excited about it. And this will be my seventh solo show. I'm
Oh,
having one
congratulations.
thank you. I'm
Well, you're
having one
welcome.
almost every year. So these things are on the horizon and keep me going and give me things to look forward to and keep
I
creating.
do like I do like how you're creating though. You're not quite sure where it's going. You're just simply following the flow. I think as I've done this, I've talked with a lot of authors and we either call them and I don't know if you're familiar with this terminology, but we either call you plotters or pantsers, where you
Yeah.
grab it by the seat of your pants and go forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, when I first wrote my very first book, I was a plotter to the extreme, but as I've done about 15 books now, I am more of a pantser. I find that the journey of the book is more exciting,
Yes.
and as I'm g w it's like reading a book from somebody else, and you're so into it, but you don't know how the end of the book is going out. So what an exciting experience for you right now as you're creating. That must be the most exciting thing ever, is that you're seeing this canvas come alive as if you're
Yes.
standing back, being in the audience of something great. That is
Yes.
spectacular. That speaks to me beyond anything.
Yeah. I many times will go and look at it for 10-15 minutes in the morning when I get started without any distractions and think about, what I want it to become. And by the end of the day, it may become something, and the next day it may change again. So
Mm.
it's an evolving thing until I feel happy about whatever form it takes, and that's how I go.
I'm I'm so excited to have spoken with you this evening.
Yeah.
I It is very admirable what you're doing. I find so much beauty in your creations. I will make sure I put the link for everyone who's listening with us this evening and who will listen on the future as I put them out on social media.
Yeah.
But I will
Sure.
make sure I have the art. It is very great. I mean, I can't. It's so it's like each one comes to life as you're looking at them. They're brilliant,
Yeah.
absolutely adorable, lovely, brilliant. I
Thank,
can't think of any better words here,
yeah.
but they're
And
gorgeous.
thank you. And I wanted to tell you that because one of your missions is women's issues, I
Yes,
do have something for your listeners. And it's like a little handout for women's empowerment, in which there are um, some of my paintings listed, along with some um, call to action kind of a thing as to what they can do to take baby steps to get started in art and things like that. So I will be happy to send you a link for that.
wonderful, I would love that. Go ahead, you can send it through me Podmatch if you'd like,
Okay,
and then I will add it to the, segment today if you'd like, we can put it in there, and
sure.
I can even put it on your page. We have a page for you on our website, and I'll make sure it's listed so that anyone can get it.
Okay,
Also, I'll be sharing out your video tomorrow, so I can make sure I add the links to those as well.
yeah, I'll send them to you right now when we are done.
All right, awesome. I want to thank you so much for being on the podcast this evening.
No, thank you for having me. And I found this conversation very inspiring. And I want to tell the people who are listening that life is full of possibilities. And
Yeah,
making an intentional choice to explore something new, whether it's art, mindfulness, or simply taking a bold step forward, can lead to a new chapter with a deeper
yeah,
purpose and joy.
I agree with you. I wholeheartedly do.
Yes.
Thank
Yes.
you so much for being on with us this evening. I want to
Thank
thank our listeners for, as always, coming in. Until next time, guys, bye bye
Okay.
for now.
Take